Thanks for tuning back into the weight room. We're going to have guest Cari Wise come on for a while and talk about all that he does, all that he knows. Well, not all that he knows. Don't have enough time for that, but we're going to talk to him for a while here on this episode, and hope you enjoy it. Appreciate you coming on today.
Absolutely. Daniel Vols, am I saying that right? Vols?
Vols.
Vols.
Yes.
Okay.
Common mistake. No big deal. Not like the Tennessee Volunteers.
Tennessee. Daniel Vols.
Gotcha. Yes. But yeah, really excited to have you on, talk to you, and just these podcasts are it's great to do a podcast and everything, but really it's kind of first and foremost, I get to talk to so many different people. I get to expand, my knowledge base a little bit. And that to me is kind of the primary goal of doing this, is really to get to learn. And, I'm young out here in this field. So I have a little, very, very bit of practical experience. Most of my stuff comes from exercise science degree. So just trying to broaden my horizons.
Okay. Where are you from originally?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Kentucky. Okay. Oh, that's not. So I grew up in, Columbia, South Carolina. So not too far, and then I lived in Charleston for a little while. So very, I love the South. I've never actually been to Kentucky. I'm trying to think. Actually, that's a lie. I went to Bowling Green.
Oh yeah. That's pretty one of the bigger areas in Kentucky.
Yeah, I played whenever I was playing minor league ball. That was one of the teams with the Hot Rods, I think is their name. I think right there on there's a university there, right? Western Kentucky, maybe.
Western Kentucky. Yep.
Yeah. Cool little area.
Yeah, it is really one. It's kind of like Lexington. It's kind of a college town through and through, really.
Yeah.
If you want to kind of start things out, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, obviously where you're from now we know, but, a little bit about what you do, and then we'll move on from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So Cari Wise, from, like I said, Columbia, South Carolina. I lived there until I was, in high school. I graduated there, and then I moved on to Charleston, South Carolina, which is about 2 hours southeast, right there on the coast. Went to college at Charleston there. That's where I did my undergrad. I was a public health major. Pretty common. Actually, I would say not very common thing. Most people go into exercise science. I started out in biology, and then I was never like a really good student when I was first starting out because I also played baseball. So my focus was, you know how it goes. You're a student athlete, and sometimes the athlete comes first. So I had high ambitions of starting out in biology, potentially like pre-med or maybe nursing, and then went into exercise science, and then wasn't really feeling chemistry and whatnot. So we dropped that and then went to a public health degree. So, which ended up being cool. It was a different kind of different field that I've never really experienced. But yeah, after college at Charleston, I guess I left in 2015. So I got drafted my junior year, played some minor league ball for 3.5 years-ish until about 2018. So I got to travel a little bit, lived in Canada for a little while, Vancouver, Michigan, West Virginia, Florida, kind of all over the place, and traveled. So that was really great. Found out, long story short, just found out that it really wasn't for me. Wasn't really enjoying it too much. Wanted to go back, finish school. Went back, finished my undergrad. So I got my degree and then immediately jumped into grad school. Figured that I needed to figure out my life ASAP, and taking any more time than I needed to, I know that wasn't going to help me. So I pretty much, I was interning at the time at Charleston, and the guy that I was interning with was he was applying and got accepted into PhD school at Oregon. So he was the one. His name's Ryan Kahn. He's actually leaving to go to Melbourne, I believe. So he left Oregon, and now he's continuing his research and whatnot out in Australia. So he leaves that there actually in like 3 months. But he was one that really kind of put me down the path and at least more academia side of things, something that I was never really into. But once I kind of met him and talked to him more, we became pretty good friends. I dove into it, and I was like, I have to go to grad school because, for one, I mean, you've probably seen this, like not a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, not a lot don't have master's degrees, which is, it's a hot topic because of kind of what some of the jobs entail. Some think you don't really need one, but it's just become such a high standard that you almost have to have one to get into it. So knew I needed that. So I continued interning. Interned at the Citadel, which is a military college down in South Carolina, right there in Charleston, right beside my undergrad, like a 5-minute drive, because my undergrad did not have football. And I knew I needed to get around that just to see if I liked it and kind of broaden my experience. So did that for about 6 to 8 months, and then ended up getting a full-time job at the Citadel. I was there for about 10 months and then met Brock, my boss now, who is at South Dakota Mines with me. And we both moved out here to South Dakota together. So he's the director of sport performance and I am the associate director. We're the only two out here. And we are employed by a hospital. So we work with Monument Health, who's also tied into EXO. So it's a really cool job. And I'm really grateful to be out here. It's a place that I never thought I would be, but I've been here for 10 months now, coming up on a year in August, and it's been incredible. So that's a very quick, I didn't take many breaths there, but that's pretty much it. That all happened over a span of, it happened really fast. The internship to the first job to the now, that all happened in about 2 years. So it's been a wild 2 to 3 years, but yeah, now I'm here in South Dakota.
Yeah. Sounds like quite a journey for real. So, going backwards a little bit, was the sports world kind of what introduced you to the world of, if you want to call it fitness or performance or strength conditioning, whatever it was, like as a kid, was that kind of your outlet or the way maybe into it a little bit?
Yeah, I've been training for a long time. I had an older brother that played football. I was a one sport athlete, one sport wonder. I started training probably in 6th grade, 6th, 7th grade, I would say. And I was training with the football team because my brother is 4 years older than me. So he was kind of in that like 8th to 9th grade range when I was kind of getting into middle school. And they were always training over the summer. So that was the only real time I got to train because we didn't have anything in middle school. Not that I can remember. But yeah, I mean, I got into it with that. It wasn't necessarily like tied to sport performance at all by any means, because if you went and looked at my training over my high school career, it was strictly for physique and probably just max strength. Yeah, there was never any methods to it. It was just kind of, I did it because I enjoyed it and I enjoyed being around. I mean, I met so many friends at the gym. It was unbelievable. So that's why I did it. And I would say even through college, I never made that connection. It was still just kind of like I did it just to be really strong and just because I love challenging myself. And then it probably was not until minor league ball when I kind of saw how higher level athletes train that I was like, okay, maybe what I've been doing isn't what I should be doing, because I mean, it wasn't. There was no method to it. It was just get in there, train really hard, not really looking at the sport itself to tie in your training. But yeah, I would say once I was in minor league ball, that was whenever I saw like what actual training should look like for the specific sport, because you've got some really, really intelligent coaches at that level. And I was lucky enough to have one, Ryan Meidel. I was with the Blue Jays. He was there for a while, and he was my strength coach the entire time I was there. And he had been in the system, I think, for like 4 or 5 years. So he had a lot of experience. He was probably the one that really pushed me when I was first getting into it. I saw like what he did and how he did it. And that's what really got me towards the sport performance kind of thing. But he's with the Tigers now, but yeah, Ryan Meidel is his name. I don't know if you guys can find him anywhere if you're a listener, but great guy, great coach. He's up in Michigan right now. So with the Flying Tigers.
Yeah. It sounds like, you definitely kind of had that typical, especially, a little bit previous to now. It seems like it's getting a little bit more popular, but, back in the day, if you want to call it that, and even further back in the day, there was a little less structure going on in the high school realm as far as strength conditioning goes. And even to some degree, a lot of smaller colleges and things like that. So did at any point though, being getting drafted, it seems like you would have been a pretty good athlete, maybe a standout athlete. Was there anybody kind of in your ear saying, hey, maybe you should be training like this, either in the high school or college level at all?
No. And this is a tough topic to talk on because there's so many different ways to go about training, that if I would have trained a different way in college, I may not have gotten drafted, if that makes any sense. So I think that what I did was good. Do I think there's some things that I could have gotten better at, like looking back now in college, that might have helped me become a better player? Absolutely. I definitely could have been faster. I was not very fast at all. I was a corner guy, so I played third and first. All we really worked on, it was kind of our culture. Our head coach was great, and he did a really good job instilling this in us. He's Monty Lee. He's actually at Clemson now. He's the head coach there. But I mean, our culture was just train really hard, get bigger. We had that more physical team. That's what it was, and it helped us out. It's just that was our character, and that's how we played. We depended on doing damage, as they say, like home runs, doubles. So that was kind of our bread and butter, and it was very successful for us, to the point where I don't know if switching up our training, we were so bought into what they were giving us that I think that's a little bit more important, because I think you can see performance increases doing, honestly, you could probably placebo a whole team and tell them that what they're doing is going to work. If you get them to buy into something, you could probably see some pretty amazing things doing some very dumb stuff. And I'm not saying that I would ever do that. I'm just saying that that's kind of how powerful the team culture and just buy-in is, I think, for team sports, at least.
That's pretty interesting to think that, what you said about, I wouldn't probably change it because of, the result I got. And it's really interesting. You can kind of butterfly effect anything, well, if I would have done this wouldn't have happened. But whenever you did reach, the minor leagues and everything like that, did you see any difference in the guys that had that maybe more traditional, or what would, be now considered performance training or strength conditioning, versus more of this training style maybe that you did?
I would say everyone that kind of went through what I did, that more general, just more physicality kind of type of person, was a little bit better off once they got there, just because a lot of the movements training is very funny. It's always you pick, I forget where I saw this, but it's you've got 10 to 15 movements, and then you literally just pick variations of those 10 to 15 movements, and that's what you do for your entire life. So I think once you have that base and that foundation, which is what I was able to develop, I think that once I got there and was able to see what they were doing with the Blue Jays, their movements, they made more sense. And I for example, an RDL, a very basic bilateral hinge. We did a lot of single leg work when I was there. So whenever we shifted towards let's just say a dumbbell single leg RDL, it was the exact same movement, just on one leg. And in my mind, I knew, it took me maybe a week or two to figure it out, but I already had that pattern kind of ingrained in my brain, to where I think if I didn't have the foundation, I think that would have been a very difficult movement to learn. And they did have two different programs. I mean, they had a lot of different programs running within the organization. They would have a more basic level for your guys maybe coming out of high school that don't have experience, because you can definitely tell you can tell a high school player that comes into the system versus a college guy, because they've had 4 years of training or 3, and then you get a high school guy that's never trained in his life, and he shows up, which I've also seen people, for example, like Bo Bichette, he's the shortstop right now for the Jays. I think he's 22, 23, not a very physical specimen, but I know he trained a little bit in high school, but he never went through that foundation period that I did. But he is an absolute superstar at such a young age. Him and then off the big one off the top of my head is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That guy never trained. he showed up and he looked like he's never worked out in his life, but I mean, he could go out there and I think he's like up there with like the league and like home runs, like just a very talented and just, I mean, his dad was a Hall of Famer. So, and I'm not like saying his work ethic isn't good because he was always very dedicated and committed to the game, but he was never the most, I guess, advanced person when it comes to weight room stuff. It's all over the place. Like some people are really good in the weight room and can't swing a bat. And then some people suck in the weight room and then they go out and hit 440 with 60 doubles on the year. Like it's just spectrum, and it's just cool to see, I think, too. Like,
yeah, it makes you think, like comparing the older generation of players who maybe didn't do any strength conditioning in their whole professional career, but they're, you know, some of the greatest players ever, you know, would they have become even better? I think that's an interesting idea to think about. You know, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. Some people, you know, maybe, I think if you think about the strength conditioning like a you know, something to raise that level to get to your potential, I think then maybe they don't get any better. But if you think of strength conditioning as something that can make you better no matter what, then, you know, who knows how good these previous players could have been. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's always a what if, and we'll never know.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think, I think a player, maybe the first one that comes to my head is like a LeBron James, a guy that has all that crazy talent and all that, you know, athleticism. And then he combines it with, you know, putting on the size and putting on maybe, you know, getting more athletic in the weight room. And then he, you know, jumps to a whole nother level. I think that's probably like the first guy that comes to my mind when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's sport dependent. Like you've got your more, like you could separate sports into two things. Like you could separate it more into a more like contact and physical sport. So like a football or like a rugby or some sort, where there's going to be contact, wrestling, where there's obviously skill involved, but there's also a very large physical component to it. And then you've got your skill sports like a tennis, like a baseball. Golf is a very big one, like very skill oriented. You've got top golfers that have never trained in their life, but they're the best golfers in the world. Same thing. I mean, that goes for, I mean, I saw it firsthand in baseball. I'm sure tennis is the same way. So you'll see different levels of change, I would say, among those sports, especially the more like football, like especially depending on like what position, you can certainly set yourself apart, I believe, especially positions like a running back or like a linebacker of some sort, where like putting on size will 100% help you, assuming you keep your other abilities, like you can keep your speed and whatnot, and your explosiveness and power. But then, yeah, you look at golf and you're like, you know, I think let's focus more on movement quality and you know, taking care of our bodies first. And not that we're not doing that with football and stuff, but it's just different. It's a different type of training.
Right. And it's interesting too, if you look at like the difference between like training maybe a high school athlete versus a college or pro athlete, how, you know, everybody kind of does the same general things because, you know, it's at a especially younger age, just becoming bigger, becoming stronger, and becoming more kind of comfortable with moving your body is the most important thing. And then as you kind of grow up and get those basics down, you do start to specialize more.
I think that's one of those things too that I don't know if we need to push that fast or as fast as we are. I think a lot of people can spend way more time doing a lot of the basics. Just from what I see, like everyone wants more. They really want to rush into more specialized stuff, when I would say 90% of individuals would see benefits just doing very, very basic, low level, just low learning curve stuff before they jump into your more, you know, sport specific, whatever it may be. But yeah, you definitely do train them. You definitely should be training those types of athletes differently. You're going to miss out on a lot of benefits and a lot of growth and development if you just skip over your foundational, just learning how to move properly in the weight room. This is not sport specific at all. This is just learning how to do movements that are going to help develop your body just physiologically and actually put on muscle, change your fiber type, whatnot. Like you have to do the simple stuff and do it for a while, I think. But then again, it's also one view, and I'm a very simple person. Like I power lift, so I'm okay just doing like the same things over and over and over and over again. But yeah, I'm sure you talk to someone else and they would say something completely different. But that's what the field is.
Growing up and getting into high school and maybe your later years of high school, was this something that you saw yourself doing? Like, at what point were you like, okay, this is something that is actually interesting to me? Or was your head kind of like, okay, baseball?
It was baseball. I mean, let's see here. There was a point in high school where I didn't know that I always wanted to play college baseball, and I always thought I was good enough, and I was good enough, obviously, but I wasn't like being recruited like crazy, like some of my teammates or other teams were. Like people were like committing to University of South Carolina, like SEC schools in like 9th, 10th grade. And that wasn't me. I didn't commit until my senior year, like right before. And then again, I committed to a mid-major, like a smaller Division I school. But like during that time, like when I was uncommitted, like I was going to go to college in Charleston anyways. I think that was kind of my mindset. Like, and I was on the track to do more of like the pre-med nursing stuff. Like that's where my head was. That's why when I got to college, that's what I was doing. But I think that mindset shifted once I didn't shift in high school, but once I got to college and saw what like being a student athlete was, I was just nowhere near committed to academics as I should have been. Because I definitely think I could have done both really, really well if I would have committed more to academics. I just wasn't committed to it that much. Freshman year, I wasn't bad, but then after that, it was just like, okay, baseball is like really like I got the chance to, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Cape Cod League. Like
yeah.
Once you're like, so I got invited to go do that my sophomore year. And the percentage of people coming out of the Cape Cod League to get drafted is very high. So like that was kind of the moment where, well, I had a really good freshman year, and then I went and played my sophomore summer in Cape Cod. It was like, okay, like I've got a really good shot at this. Like I'm going to have a good junior year, and then I'm probably going to be out of here. And so my junior year, it was a inverse relationship between my academic success and my baseball career success. Like my junior year was my best year, arguably. Had a really good freshman year, like sophomore slump. But yeah, junior year was the best. And then coincidentally, my academics suffered a lot to the point where I had to take another semester of school when I finished playing minor league ball because I just missed out on some credits. But that's neither here nor there. I learned my lesson, but I completely forgot the question that you asked.
Just like getting in, at what point were you kind of like, did your mindset go maybe this is a job kind of thing?
I would say in minor league ball, like it wasn't on my mind at all. I mean, I always loved training, and I kind of just thought like it could be something that I do maybe after I retire from the league after 10 years to get my pension. That was in my head. Like I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to succeed and I want to do really well, but that's not how it planned out. But I would say probably my second year when I was playing in pro ball, like that was like, I finished, and then I remember moving back to Charleston and having somewhat of a client base. I trained a few kids here and there, also drove Uber, but I wasn't going to do that full time, but that was what I started out there. And then I would say my third year playing, when I knew that I didn't want to play anymore, that was when I was like, okay, I have to find something to do. And then, I mean, the whole time I just really never saw it, but I always loved what that strength coach did with the Jays. And I was like, I honestly couldn't see myself doing anything else just because I love being in the weight room and I love being around young athletes. So I figured it might've been the best path for me. And as soon as I got back, I knew I had to intern and see as many things as I could to know if I really liked it or not. And it was one of those things, as soon as I got into it, like I like never wanted to leave work. I never wanted to not be around like the weight room again. And that was it. Like I would say as soon as I finished playing and started interning, that was where I knew I wanted to make it into an actual career. But yeah, it definitely took a while. It's one of those things that just kind of marinates in the back of your mind for a little bit. And then, whenever you're at a point in your life where you've got to make some decisions, that was my decision, and just went all in. And once again, here I am.
what was the feeling of like getting out of baseball, and like, was there any struggle there mentally? Like, oh man, I thought this was the path. Like, was there any of that getting into the next part of your life?
Absolutely. I mean, it was probably the hardest. I would say that my second year, like going into my third year, was when I started like experiencing a little bit of doubt. Like, I don't know if this is what I should be doing. And that definitely set in, and that'll eat at you no matter what it is. But yeah, I mean, my third year, like it was kind of the time where I was like, okay, well, I've been like, there was a little period where I didn't know what to do. Like I knew I didn't want to play, but it's the only thing that I've done for, at the time I was 23. So at the time at 23, been playing since I was, not at a high level for 15 years or whatever it is, 15, 16, 17 years since I was 5. But it's just been such a big part of your life, and it's all you've ever done. It's all most of your friends that you make. Most of your mentors are all coaches, baseball coaches for that. But yeah, I was in a really, really, not like a dark place. I mean, there were definitely times where I was very just kind of stagnant and didn't really know what to do. But I mean, I had some really good teammates that I was able to talk to and just and figure out what I wanted to do. Because some of them are in the same boat. Like it's a tough thing. You're away from home for 8 months out of the year, always traveling, not the best. Some cities that you go to aren't the best. So there's a lot of doubt just in general in the minor leagues. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm sure some of the highest level players could tell you the same thing. They've probably maybe their first 2 years, they probably experienced the same thing, but something in them, they were able to maybe make some changes or maybe change their mindset in a certain way to push them through it a little bit. And I wasn't able to do it, but yeah, I mean, I'm not ashamed to say there was definitely a lot of struggle. I think the best thing you can do is find what you love. And I love training. And I mean, it kept me like very happy, and it kept me going every day. Like I love showing up in the weight room and seeing everyone. So that's what I know that I needed to do. Cause if I didn't, I don't know what, hell, I really don't know what I would be doing if I didn't do this. I couldn't even give you a guess.
So it's interesting you mentioned like that doubt, and actually we have a triple A team here in Louisville, and actually plan on going to a game tonight actually. But every time I go, it's just like it makes me think like, wonder, is this person going to make it, or is this person going to go down or going to go up, or like wonder what they're going through. Like after they leave this game, what are they going to do, and all that kind of stuff. Cause it's not, you go to an NBA, MLB, NFL game, and it's like, you don't really have that same kind of connection with the player just because they're kind of elevated a little bit. Yeah. But at least me, whenever I go to, a lower, any lower than just the highest level, it's like a little bit more of a connection with like, oh, wonder what this person's like life is like in a way. And it just makes me think like all these athletes are going through this just like completely, it's a similar journey, but completely different from each other. And the path that they took to get here and what's next, it's definitely something I think about pretty much every time I go there. And it's also like a great appreciation for just like being able to go and, watch a game and them being out there playing. And it's just, it's a little bit different than watching the MLB in a way.
Yeah. Everyone, I mean, there's so many different like types of players and just different personalities. Like you see people that come from, like off the top of my head, Andrew Guillat, he was in my draft class. He was a very late rounder. He was a senior sign out of a school down in Louisiana, a very small school, but he was able to sign, and didn't get this like really big bonus, but was able to push himself all the way to AAA. And then you've got guys like myself that was like very blessed, and I was drafted fairly high that just didn't pan out. Made it 3 years and just called it. And yeah, it's like just being inside of it, you can definitely see the moves that are made, and kind of how devastating some of them are. Like you've got people that make it to AAA, and then all of a sudden, maybe towards the end of the year, they get cut. Like you are one step, you are a few games of just like, if you're a hitter, if you're a pitcher, like if you're pitching, you're like 2 really good starts away from potentially, if they need someone, say, hey, come up, boom, and then here's your chance. Like, you get your chance, you do well, and then you're there. Like, it's and I said that like it's really easy, but because then obviously you have to keep performing every time you go out there. But like that's the tough part. You've got guys in AAA that get boom, move. They spend 2 years in AAA. They're so close, and then they just get. I mean, maybe they've been there for a long time in the system. They're on their 7th year, and it's kind of their last year on their contract. And the organization just brings in some younger guys in the same position that they want to spend more time on, and it's just see ya. Like it's literally like next day gone. I mean, same thing, like positive side, like you get the call up. I mean, it's immediate. Like it's one of my buddies that played for us at Charleston, Bailey Ober. He just made his debut for the Twins pitcher. I think he was in AA. He might've made one start in AAA, had a pretty good start, and the Twins starter came out and he scratched his start himself because he had some injury, and Bailey had a good start. And then it was literally, I think it was like the next day or the 2 days later, like he was pretty much up for his next start, and they boom, see ya, let's come to Minnesota. You're pitching against the Cubs, I think it was. But yeah, it's wild. It's just and that's every professional sport. It's a business, and it's got to perform. And unfortunately, there's not much. I mean, and I don't blame them. Like, what they're in a position where they almost have to. Like, you can't keep every player. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, very tough, very, very unique, much different than college baseball. Say that.
It seems like such a mental game too. Like just the up and down and getting your shot, and just having that one shot. I can't even imagine just the pressure you must be under when you go from whatever level to let's say you're going to play the Cubs, and then you got that one, maybe that's your one and only shot. I can't imagine. Is there a lot of like psychology, like sports psychology and stuff going on at the AAA level?
So yeah, a lot of organizations are doing a good job of. I'm sure it was a hot topic a few years ago, which is why there's been so many of them lately. So for example, like when I first got drafted and played, like this was 2015, I'm trying to think here. There was they called it the high performance staff or department. There was none of that. And then my second year, they brought on high performance staff. So they brought in somebody from like IMG Academy, like a PhD from like Europe or England. I forget the guy's name. Angus is his name. I don't remember his last name, but they brought in another guy, brought in like 2 dietitians, brought in a mental performance coach. So right there, someone that helps you deal with like your day-to-day things, to kind of change your mindset and help you just have a good mindset going into each day, which was incredible. That guy I still talk to like to this day, Ben Freakley. He was a head soccer coach. I want to say he coached at like VMI, and then he also coached at Georgia Southern. But Ben was great. Like he was a resource while we were at spring training. And I'm sure they have even more now. Like it's one of those things that are growing because of how important it is and how much it happens in baseball. And they do a really good job. Like if Ben was in spring training facility in Florida, like he'll spend 2 weeks down there, and then Ben will go, I don't know, like for example, Michigan, like when I was in Lansing, Ben would fly to Michigan and spend a week in Michigan and meet with players. And then Ben would hop on a plane, fly to Vancouver, spend a week like there with those players. Like there was always open communication, and there was never a time where you were left pretty much stranded or didn't have anyone to talk to. Like there was always something you could do. And it's as easy as going up to your head coach and saying, hey, I need to talk to Ben. Like, and then boom, phone call. You guys can set up meetings. And I'm sure there's even more now. Like I bet they've got a new facility down in Florida that's incredible. And I'm sure they've got more than one on staff. Just a lot of resources, which is great to see that they're spending money on that stuff, that and food and just overall just well-being. I think that stuff's very important. So it's awesome to see.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like, was there any like stigma from like saying, hey, I need to talk to somebody? Was there any from the coaches maybe, or from the players at all?
No, I had very good coaches. Obviously, there's the times where it's like, suck it up, whatnot. Like there's definitely times where like that helps, but it was never a point where that was like their real thought. Like it was, they were always there for you. And I think too, like the players, I mean, when you're a player, you understand it. Like you experience it yourself. So whenever, and you can tell, like you can definitely tell when someone's going through something. So I think just speaking up and asking and talking and always checking in on people is important, which is great because some sports it's not like that. Like I don't know, it might be, but just playing baseball, it's such a mental thing that like, I mean, you can go, and this just sounds very like, doesn't sound bad from like looking from the outside in, but like whenever you've had a week of not getting a base hit, like that is devastating. Like, and to be able to pull yourself out of that it's a very tough situation. And you got to go. I just remember times where you would strike out 3 times and go out in the field and make 2 errors. And it's like, man, those 3 runs that they just scored are literally on me. I was the reason that we lost, because that's the reality. Like you could very well be a reason that your team lost, but it's not the end of the world. But some people certainly think that way. And I'd say it's pretty normal to think that way. Not forever, but yeah, there was never a stigma around, not letting someone speak up or not asking if someone's okay. Or I thought that the organization, at least the Blue Jays organization, I never experienced any others. And even in college, we never had any. Our coaches were always very, very open. They were very tough and hard on us, but there was never a time where I felt like I couldn't go up to a teammate or a coach and just ask or talk to them about anything.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because like, baseball is one of those sports where you're the starting whatever, but on offense, you're only getting a very limited amount of opportunities every game. And
Yep.
you look at, a sport like basketball, it's like, oh, you could take 10 shots a game, 15 shots a game, whatever. Like you're going to get multiple, some pretty good opportunities, especially as a starter. But even as starter, in baseball, you're only getting very, very limited amount. And, every time that you don't get the desired outcome, it piles up, and it's like, 1 seems like 100.
Yeah. And then if you don't perform, you get taken out and you don't get a start for a couple of days, and then you get back in and it's like, well, I haven't hit I haven't seen live pitching in 4 days. So yeah, it's just a tough sport. That's what it is.
Yeah. A lot of stuff goes into baseball. It really is one of the, like to me, one of the craziest sports as far as just like how much goes into it, but then how much you might watch on TV and think that this is like a slow or a boring sport or whatever. Like it could be seen that way. I could definitely understand, but like just how much goes into it to me is just mind boggling with
absolutely
with all just the strategy and everything that goes into it. It's crazy.
Yeah, wild, very wild sport.
Moving to like the powerlifting side of things, like doing like powerlifting now, is that something that is just simply something that you just enjoy doing and it's something that keeps you, mentally and physically there? Like what is the kind of the goal of the powerlifting today?
Well, I love it. I think if you don't love it, you're not going to succeed in it, because it's just like anything else, just like baseball. If you don't love it, you're not going to do very well. And powerlifting is no different. If you don't love when 600-pound barbells on your back, I guarantee you're not going to lift it. I always love, like for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. I think some people are wired differently, but I love being challenged, and I love pushing myself to a point where like I might break. I just enjoy the feeling. I like pain, as weird as that sounds. Some pain, not a lot of pain, like obvious real injuries I'm not a very big fan of, but self-induced, just, smart pain, I guess we'll coin it that. But no, that I love training. Like I've always loved training. Like I said, I started out more bodybuilding-ish kind of stuff, more egotistical lifting, which I'm sure most people did. And then now I'm very far on the spectrum of, yeah, I want to look good and feel good and whatnot, but I also want to figure out how to push my body to perform that it is as good as it possibly can. Like I want to be able to squat just off the top of the head, like feel my goals, like I think it's very important to have in powerlifting. Like I want to squat 700 pounds. I want to deadlift 700 and I want to bench 500. Like, and I'm not going to stop until I get there. And then once I do get there, which I will, like it's, whether it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I don't really care. But whenever I do, it's one of those things that it's like, okay, well, now I got to do more, but I know that I'm not going to be able to do more for the rest of my life. So obviously you got to be smart about it. And I feel like I am for the most part, but I just enjoy pushing myself, and I love training, and the community's great, and I like competing. That's part of it too. Like I don't have baseball to compete anymore. So I've got powerlifting and slow pitch softball. That's my, those are my two things now. But yeah, the powerlifting community it's phenomenal. Like South Carolina, it was great. I was in a different federation, but I've made some really nice, really, really good friends in the gym. And then whenever you go to a meet, I don't know if you've ever experienced one, like it's just a different atmosphere. Like everyone is there cheering each other on, like to squat more or bench more or deadlift more than they ever have. Like it's an incredible place to be. And it's something that I'm going to do. I'm going to do it long term. And that's the way I look at it. Like I'm not trying to squat 700 pounds this year. If I do, great, but I want to do it in 2-3 years. I want to slowly develop, because I know what happens whenever you try to push too quickly. And I'm at a young age to where I probably could push a lot more and be dumb and get really strong really quick. Actually, not really quick, because that's not possible. But I know that if I want to keep doing what I love doing, that I have to kind of pull myself back every now and again and think about my well-being and health, because it's tough. Like as much as I say that I love pushing myself, like it definitely does drain you, and it takes a lot of energy out of you. But yeah, that's what powerlifting is. It's my thing that I hold on to now, and it's what I do for fun. And I love it. That's it. I just like getting really strong. That's it.
Yeah. And it's interesting. All the power lifters that I've talked to, it just seems like it really is it's a super like personal journey. Like everybody, you don't really hear like somebody saying, oh, well, I lift more than them, or I'm better than them because I lift more than them, or like, anything like that. It seems like it's this thing to people there where it's just like, I want to do this to get better. I want to do this to better myself physically, and I think it builds a lot more than just physical stuff as well. But like, so kind of going into that, like, what do you think you have learned in powerlifting and also just about yourself from powerlifting, since you've been doing it?
For one, specifically, this is just specifically on like the human body. I'll say that just no one has ever reached their potential. Like, I don't think anyone should ever think that they are close to their potential, because you're not, and that's a lie you're telling yourself. You can push yourself past so many different things. It just requires relentless effort. That's what it does. I mean, it's incredible what the body can do. Like, I think that I'm strong, but then I look at what other people are doing, and they inspire me. Like, you see someone squat raw. Yeah, they might be 100 pounds heavier than me, but they can squat 1,000 pounds. Like that is just like, that blows my mind. Do I think that I'll ever squat 1,000 pounds? Probably not. I don't know if I want to. I'm pretty sure I'd be an Olympian, or excuse me, they don't even have powerlifting in the Olympics. But if they did, I would probably be one of the best squatters at 225 pounds. But I don't know if many people have seen like a 4.5 times body weight squat. But yeah, it's definitely taught me that. That's just more of the physical side of things, but it's also mental. Like, it just helps you push past barriers, like it just in your daily life. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you can do so much more than you think you can. And that's a very common thing you hear people say, like, and I hate it. Like, I know they might be kidding, but like when people tell me that they peaked in high school and like they've reached their pinnacle at the end of their college career, I'm like, it is unbelievable how much more you have. Like, I would say, I don't even know the percentage, but the percentage you probably can't even calculate. The people that have actually reached their potential, like maybe a Usain Bolt, I don't know. Like, yeah. Then you think, like, could he have done something differently? Like, could he have trained for another 4 years and broke his on record? I don't know. That's just one that comes to the top of my head. Like, I don't think the human body has ever reached its potential, and I'm curious to see if we'll ever find it. But I would say that's the biggest one.
I've never thought about it before in that way, really, of like people not reaching their potential. And is that to you, is that something that is motivating a lot more? Or is that something that kind of keeps you up thinking like, how can I do this? I mean, I guess that's also motivational, but does it ever like make you think if I only would have done this sooner or done this in this way quicker, better? Like how does that play on your mind?
Very motivating. Motivating. And then like, yeah, I mean, you look in hindsight, you're like, man, if I would have been doing this, like if I would have been doing this 2 years ago, I might could add, I'm going to say very just powerlifting specific things. Like I might be able to squat 50 pounds more, or if I wouldn't have trained this way, if I wouldn't have been so stupid in high school, like those things, like, but then again, learning experience, I think that, you got to go through it to be where you're at right now. So, but yeah, I think it's just a huge motivator to know that, and to believe in. Like that's the thing too. Like you might see people like, oh yeah, he's not there yet. Like he'll get there. Like you have to actually believe that you're gonna get stronger. You can say that you're gonna do it, but you can tell very quickly who actually believes that they can get stronger and who just hopes that they get better or stronger or faster. But then you see the people that actually believe in it. You just watch them train. It's a completely different sight. So yeah, very, very motivating. And that's what I use it for. That's one of my main drivers, is to know that I can always be better and to never settle and just always keep pushing the dial until I break, but not break.
Right. Yeah. I think it's interesting to look at the potential thing, because like you truly don't know a lot of times what your potential is. And, I think we sometimes get confused about like what we think we can do and then what we really can do a lot of times, just based on, the work that we're willing to put in. So yeah, I think it's, potential is just, I think, and it's so much easier too to see potential from like looking at other people, like, oh, they have so much potential. Like, you might look at an athlete and think, oh my gosh, and in 3 or 4 years, they're going to be the best player in the league or something. And then but when you look at yourself, you don't sometimes see the same level that you could become.
And people also think that when they see someone that's like very talented, they think it's genetic, which sure. Yeah. I mean, you can't deny genetics, and it probably is to some degree. And probably a high percentage of it is genetic, but you can change like the amount that you can change. I was listening to a podcast, Andy Galpin, does that name ring a bell?
Maybe, but not 100%. Maybe
he's a PhD in like human bioenergetics at Cal State Fullerton. He runs their like physiology lab for sport performance. He's very into human performance, not really like researching all the dumb stuff and the stuff that we already know. Like he wants to actually like research like high level athletes, and he does. Like he's very into like muscle physiology. So, and his biggest thing, and this is kind of where I get my mindset from, like when you look at like the actual muscle itself, and you can see like what the muscle's made of as far as like the fiber types, like you can see such a big shift in fiber types throughout someone's life. And it's actually over like 2 weeks, you can see like a change in fiber type, which is bananas. But he's basically said that there's no real limit as to how far you can shift yourself towards, like, so for myself, or you might be like, let's say you really enjoy like your endurance stuff, and let's say you're very, very type 1 oriented. There's not a real limit how far you can take yourself on the other side of the spectrum. The only problem is time. I mean, there's a cap. Like you can't, things get harder, like training gets harder as you get to like 50, 60, 70 years old. And then you start seeing some other things happen with your body, but there's no limit on what you can do. The only limit is how much time you have. And we have a certain amount of time on the world, and it's just not possible to get as strong as you want to. So that's the reason why people, maybe that's how you define your potential. Then you got to find that age where you know, maybe you peak at 50, or I don't know like what the best age to peak at, but I know that I'm not going to be getting stronger at the age of 70. I'll tell you that. I
Yeah,
might be getting stronger at some things, like still lifting and making sure that I can like get off the toilet and stuff, but I'm not going to be chasing 1,000-pound deadlift at the age of 70.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Like you would see fiber type shifts for years and years and years, and it would just change. Obviously the rate slows, but you still push, and you can still change. It's just the rate. And I'm sure that's a pretty big thing that turns people away too, whenever they stop seeing those very quick spurts of performance increases or whatever it may be, weight loss. That's kind of something that turns people away too. Damn, I haven't seen anything change in 3 months, 6 months, because I've seen people not get stronger over 6 months, and then all of a sudden something happens. So you just got to keep going. That's it.
Yeah. It's really interesting because actually was reading this thing today. It was talking about how they can kind of look at different proteins within your body, and they can kind of see like, based on like an exercise program, they can see this person's going to have this benefit. This person's going to have this benefit. It just seems to me like we're gaining so much information and so much that can like really personalize and also almost make exercise seem more like a prescription now. Like, don't waste your time doing this if you want this result, because, it's not going to do that for you. If you want this based on this, thing within your body, then you should be doing these things. So it seems like we're just becoming more proficient at like self-diagnosing and like figuring out these are the things that are good for individual people, instead of saying, oh, well, this is what, this famous bodybuilder did, so I think if I do it, I'm going to have the same results. I think like, and then too, what you said, like just all these different things we're learning, it just seems like we're growing in this field that used to be kind of just like, oh, lift to get stronger, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I've heard people say this, like exercise is medicine. Like like you said, the word prescription, like there's certainly a prescription. Like there's a right dose. There's too little of a dose that does not give a good response. And then there's too much. There's an overdose, I guess you should say.
Yeah.
Probably not as what's the word here? Probably not as
lethal
as a potential like prescription medication, but I mean, certainly could see some pretty horrid things happen. Like you see injuries happen all the time. I mean, it's just one of those things, you're overworked and you just lose form and boom, ACL goes, something like that. But and technology is part of it too. Like back then they didn't have like Andy Galpin. Literally, this is the coolest thing. Like I recommend anyone that listens to this, and even you, if you don't really know him that well, like he does muscle biopsies, and he can literally go in while you're I almost just said alive. Obviously you're alive, but while you're awake, not even like you have no like anesthesia, anything, no numbing. He'll go in with this little needle thing and boom, grab a piece of your quad out, and he'll pull it out. Like he'll literally get a small fiber, and then what he'll do is he'll take those apart. And he's got videos of him doing this. It's crazy. Like it's under the scope, and he literally just starts picking like strands off. So he's basically just pulling the fibers apart from one another, and then he analyzes basically what each one is and kind of how far on the spectrum each fiber type is. So you might have one that's 60% fast twitch and 40% slow. Then you might have one that's more fast twitch or less slow. Then you might have one that's like 90 slow. It's crazy kind of like what he's done for this field. And then, and then like you said, like you'll give some sort of prescription, you'll give exercises for someone. Like an example would be someone that's not very fast twitch, like maybe more of an endurance, maybe like a marathon runner or some sort, that you're going to see that more type 1. And then you can say, hey, like we're literally going to, and he's done this, like he'll give them explosive movements, whether it be Olympic lifting, jumping, sprinting, things of that nature that are going to help shift you towards the type 2. Then he'll literally take it 4 weeks later out of the same muscle group, and he'll reanalyze, and it has changed. And that to me is like, it's just unbelievable. Like that, you just can't do that back in the day. And we always knew it. Like we know that when you jump and throw and sprint and, all these things, like we know that you get more explosive. It's just cool to see it come to fruition and actually have it published. Because usually he always says this too. Like he's probably, if I could meet one person in the world, it would be Andy, which not many people probably think. Like, he's a great dude. He does a really good job of just giving out information. But he basically says, dang, did I just lose my train of thought? That's crazy. I literally just forgot what I was going to say. We were talking about fiber types.
But you were talking about
I remember. Okay. So yeah, we always knew that like those things get you faster and stronger and more explosive and can change your fiber types. But like, and he always says like bro science not always, but it typically over time, like science is always behind real life experience. So he always says that the bro sciencey kind of stuff not always, but pretty high percentage of it does pan out to have some pretty good merit to it. And so he does a good job of just shedding some light on some of that stuff. Because you look at like Arnold, he just did what he did. But then when you look at like how he trained, like whether it be like his lighter weights, slower eccentrics, controlled tempos, like Poliquin did some of the stuff too, like all that tempo training turns out to be, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, like eccentric training is very damaging and really good for hypertrophy. So it's just, they knew it worked. We just didn't actually know how it worked. And that's the cool part, is like understanding how stuff works. It's
cool to think somebody out there just like did it and it worked and they kept doing it. And yeah, it's just, it's cool to think that like the pioneers of what we now know to be true or, partially true or whatever. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
But yeah, man, won't take up any more of your time. I'll let you go. It was certainly really cool to get to talk to you and meet you, and look forward to, getting this podcast out there. Before we head out though, if you want to let the people know where they can find you on the social media world and all the other things, that'd be cool.
Yep. So I guess my Instagram, you guys can find me at Strength Coach Carl, spelled as is, no weird things. And that is about it. We also have another account. I don't know if have you followed our Strength Coach with Board account?
Yes.
Okay. That is just Strength Coach with Board. It is also me. It is also hundreds of other coaches around the world that have kind of sent us stuff. And we started that while we we're at the Citadel. So that's another way to find us. But that's about it. If you want to look at me as far as like the school goes, we're at South Dakota Mines here in Rapid City, South Dakota. Cari Wise again is my name, and then my boss is Brock Barron. If you ever want to reach out to us, just shoot us an email and we'll get back to you.
Awesome, man. Well, I do recommend going to follow both of those pages. The second one you mentioned there, really a funny page too in a lot of ways. There's a lot of kind of humor and sarcasm in there, but also some really good stuff. Certainly makes.
We're catching some heat right now because of the post we did about the burpees. Like,
oh yeah, I guarantee it.
Really enjoy it. Some people, like, there's always one, like we've got, like, you've got like 15, I'm sure there's more likes on it now and like comments, but like we've got 2,000 people that like our picture. And then there's always like the one or two people that just get offended and just want to just start something in the comments. It's pretty funny, but we've got a pretty good conversation going on right now with some people, kind of a back and forth, but yeah. Follow us and hop in on some good conversations, because we'll post some things that make a few people upset, but it's
good stuff.
It starts good conversation. That's what it does.
Exactly. Yeah. That gets the conversation going. That's what it's all about. And that's what the podcast is all about. So
absolutely,
really appreciate you coming on and sharing some time with me today here in the weight room, and look forward to putting this thing out there. So
absolutely. All right, thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. And have a great day. I'll keep in touch.